Alrighty, now in this video, we're going to start loading our messages that we just sent in our conversation. So real quick, in our code, let's open the chat, app Livewire chat, this one. In here, I'm going to create a new, or rather, some new public properties here. Here we can say public, let's say loaded messages. I'm going to create another one. Let's call this one paginate variable is equals to 10 by default. But after doing that, just close this. After the send message, we can create a new method. Let's call this one load messages. And be careful, here's load messages, here it's loaded messages. In here, we're going to first of all get the count. So you're going to get the count first. So let's say count is equals to message model, this one. Make sure you import it here. Message model where conversation ID is equals to this conversation ID. Remove the semicolon there. You're gonna get the count. Down here, we're gonna do skip and query. In here, I'm gonna say this loaded messages is equals to the message model again. Here where conversation ID is equals to this conversation ID. In here, I'm gonna do something like a skip count minus this paginate variable. All right, and then I'm gonna take this paginate, move the semicolon there. Finally, we're gonna do the get. So here, what basically is happening is that we're getting the count for all messages, and then here we're gonna get messages which belong to this conversation in the chat. And then for the skip, we're gonna skip some messages because we want to, in the future, we want to actually load messages, and then as we scroll, we're gonna load more messages. So that's the whole point for this skip. And this paginate variable is going to be incremented later in the future. For now, it's only 10, as you see here. This is only for the first load. So we skip and then take the paginate to be constant, and then here we're gonna increment every time, and then skip some messages, get some other messages. So if we have 20 messages, we're gonna just take 10 at first. In the next query, we're gonna skip the first 10, get the next 10. That's how it works. So after doing that, in here we're now going to return this loaded messages. All right. Now, in order to activate this, here we have to go to the mount. Here, after setting the receiver, in here, let's do this loaded messages. Actually, here you have to do here this load messages method. But be careful with these guys. Here we are returning the loaded messages, which is this. Here in the mount, we're just calling the load messages method, which is this one. Be careful with that. After that, now let's go to our chat in our blade. This one. Now in here, we can just simply close this header and the footer. Let's go to our main in here. Right now, as you can see, we currently have two messages, dummy messages, which are showing here and here. We're gonna remove this and then add our dynamic messages. So right here, let's just delete one of these. So we only need one for this. Here, let's do a for each loop. Here we can say loaded messages as message. Let's move this end for each. Wrap this div inside this for each. In here, I'm gonna get a few variables. Here, let's say at PHP, just to help us not repeat our code. And let's add something like belongs to auth. This just checks if the current message is being looped. Since this is a loop, it's gonna check if this current message belongs to the authenticated user at the moment. So sender ID is equals to auth ID. Okay, the one who sends the message is the owner of the message. That's what this means. That's why we're using sender ID here. Right, after adding that, now in here, we're going to use this. Let's get this. So if, as you can see, as I created this, I added some comments here. Set true if belongs to auth. And here we're checking if belongs to auth. This is going to return true or false, since we're using this double equal sign here. So right here, use Alt to select here, click Alt, double click here, double click there, and double click there while holding the Alt button. And then let's paste this one, belongs to auth. So here we're going to check if it belongs to auth, we're going to push it to the right. If it belongs to auth, we're going to hide this avatar. If it belongs to the auth, we're also going to change the color here. That's what this means. Now in here, finally, remove this lorem ipsum. Let's add an actual message from the message. From the message model. Here, let's say message body. All right, now if we go back, let's refresh. You see, now the message is being shown here since we sent one message. If I go to the other chat here, you can see the message that I sent are currently showing dynamically right here. I can send another one. It's been sent, but since we have not yet activated the live update, if I refresh the page, you can see that it's being loaded right here. All right, this is good. But now, if you can see in the chat list, we have not yet, it's not really showing dynamic messages. It's still showing the dummy messages, lorem ipsum. Let's go ahead and activate our created messages in our chat list. So here, let's open the chat list. Blade. In here, right here, I'm gonna go ahead inside here, we're in the for each, this one, for the list. After the receiver, I'm gonna add another property here, or rather variable. I'm gonna call this one last message. It's going to be conversation messages, add open bracket, close bracket, so we can create a new query. So we can use the latest, because the latest won't work if we don't call a new query here, or rather put open bracket, close bracket here. Want to access this latest. It's going to be latest and first. Want to get the last message, last sent message. And make sure it's not latest, my bad, spell it correctly here. Latest first. After getting the last message, now I'm going to scroll down. Here it says message body right here. In here, actually, we're going to wrap this whole div element inside an if statement. So here, if last message is not equals to null, we're going to show this one. We just cut this end if, put it down there. So if the last message is not equals to null, then we're going to, in here, get the last message body. Also here, the message, mind you, the message might be not available. So here, add a question mark, just to make sure that if it's empty, we do not get an error. Just leave it empty like that. And here, on top, you can see here I added a comment saying only show if auth is the owner of the message. All right, so here I'm going to do an if statement again. So here, if we're going to wrap this whole span inside this if. Let's add the condition now here. We're going to say if last message, if last message sender ID is equals to auth ID, then we can show this, because we only want to show this if the message belongs to us. For example, I send the message, when I say you sent the message. All right, then down here in the time, we're going to add something like last message, we are created at, then we're going to say short absolute diff for humans. This is by Carbon, the Carbon we use in PHP. All right, here last but not the least, in here in the red status, only show if the auth is not the owner of the message. So in here, we're going to add a few classes right here, inside here. Let's open the brackets. First, I'm going to check if the last message is not equals to null. I'm going to say, and if last message sender ID not equals to auth ID, make sure I add open bracket, close bracket there. And one last conditional here, and if last message is read. Now this is coming from it's a helper method that we added in our message model right here. If you go to the message model, in here we added this is read. It's gonna check in the table, or rather in the model, saying if the read at is not equals to now, which means it is read. Now if you go back here, we're checking if it is read. But since it's the opposite, we're gonna check if it is. We wanna show this only if the message is not read. So here add the exclamation mark to change it. And also here add if last message sender ID is not equals to the auth ID, which means we want to make sure this message does not belong to us. If that's the case, then here add the question mark. Let's make it visible. Or else make it invisible. And if this is too long, guys, you can just download the code. I'll add this in the resources. Hopefully there's no error. I've not yet checked this code. And now we can go back and refresh this. All right, we get undefined variable last message. Where? In here. Last message. All right. So here, guys, my bad. I added 2 S's. All right, just select all this. Remove 1 S. Now, if I go and refresh, it should work fine. Alrighty, now you see here's adding the last message that I just sent here, saying another one. Here, if I say new month, I send the message and I refresh. You can see it's showing new month here 2 seconds ago, and it's saying you since I sent it, and here the new month message is showing up. So I think that's it for this video, guys. Let's not make it long, and I'll see you in the next Ventures.